name is Robert Reynolds. My wife Loretta and I own Gutenberg Media. We own Tennessee Good Old Days, and today we're going to tour the Tipton-Haynes Historic Site, Tennessee's historic site of Tipton-Haynes. My grandfather was Colonel John Tipton. We're going to find out today a little bit more about my family's history, and we have along with us Jim Worley, my uncle, my mother's brother, and his wife Wanda. Please come with us as we learn a little bit more about our family history. Thank you very much. I'll be talking with you for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
That's right.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So my name's Anna. I'm gonna be your tour guide today. So you can follow me. I will walk as I talk a lot, just a heads up. So we now interpret roughly 17.5 acres of the original 100 acres that Colonel John Tipton purchased with this property. The Historical Association today, we now own roughly about 48 of that acres. That is going to include our cemetery, which is going to be in Garland Acres, which is the subdivision right over here. And it is also going to include a field a little bit on the other side of the road. For that field, I am not 100% sure exactly where that one is. The running joke is I really love cows, and we rent it out to a cattle farmer, so I'm not allowed to go over there, so I won't annoy the cows. But our history as a private residence begins in 1784 when Colonel John Tipton purchases the property. But as a historic site, we go all the way to the Pleistocene period, better known as the Ice Age. So we have quite a bit of history to cover on our tour. So with the barn, this is going to be an 1850s build. So that's our Landon Carter Haynes time period. And it's one of 6 original structures still on site. Our second original structure we'll look at is the corn crib. And that's also going to be our Landon Carter Haynes time period. So like I said, once we get to this side of the barn, we're able to see everything a little bit better in the lower field. So across the bridge is that limestone cave, and we'll find remnants of a dire wolf there. We'll find its fossilized tooth. The tooth itself is now on display at Gray Fossil Site in Gray, Tennessee, but the mock-up is in our exhibit. We also have our spring house. It's the one on the left. It's the natural spring that's also been here pretty much since the beginning of time. The combination of those two are going to make it really popular for prehistoric people, Native American, Spanish, English explorers. We have record that Daniel Boone had a hunting lodge nearby and was actually hid in the cave, hiding from Native Americans. But it also brings a species of now extinct Appalachian buffalo into play. So right over through here, it is called Buffalo Mountain, and that's because of the buffalo shape. And this road on the back end of our property is called Buffalo Road. Pretty close to that fence line running parallel the road, heading down into our lower field is a buffalo trace. Now they do not look too terribly impressive to look at. It is a dent in the ground, but they have a lot of historical importance. They do become Native American hunting trails. They are eventually our wagon roads as people start moving westward into this region. And a lot of them will become our roads, our railroads, our interstates. So they're really quite important on how we get here. We also, in our lower field, the building on our right is a distillery. It is going to be a reproduction specifically for Colonel John Tipton's distillery. He had a whiskey distillery here on the property, which means I do have to give the apologies It is a non-active still, which means I do not have any whiskey samples for you guys today here on site. We also have our Andre Michaud Nature Trail. Now, Andre Michaud, he's going to be one of the few people that never live on the site that I will talk about a bit. And he is a French botanist. He sent over here during the reign of King Louis XVII because France has a deforestation problem. So what he is going to do is he is sending plants all the way over to France from this region. He actually classifies over a dozen plants in the Appalachian region, and he does stay with Colonel John Tipton 2 nights. One when he is coming down this region and one when he is coming back up. But a really fun fact about him is he liked poison ivy, he thought it was pretty, and he sent it to France. So our first building that we'll actually go up through today is our big historic home. So this home in its original state has been here since 1784. It is going to house the original cabin that is now entombed into the home. The home today is going to have quite a few changes as we go through. So John Tipton Jr., he actually adds to the Colonel John Tipton home and makes it a full two-story federal style farmhouse. We have this long little shape that gives our home its L shape that it's known for, which is called the L. It is a dining room and a kitchen that are added on by Landon. We also have, with our Simmerleys, we'll have some renovations. Our first one is going to be 2 light bulbs, one in each room of the L, and a coal stove in the L. Even though we were a private residence till 1962, we never had any running water nor plumbing. In the 1970s, we got a small amount of electricity added into the home to help run a security system which is no longer in the home. We have different security now. And then our most recent renovations were actually finished this year in June. We got HVAC into the home. So if you see our HVAC sensors, I do apologize. They were not hidden quite as well as we had hoped. HVAC, air conditioning, and heat, which has done quite well for us. So this right here, this is a kitchen garden. Kitchen gardens are going to be used more or less for quick things that you're grabbing that you're pretty much always using. This one today, it is done by our Master Gardeners program. So I will tell you, I have 2 things that if you ask me about, I will just stare at you very blankly on my tour. The first one is plants. It is a miracle I've not killed any of our flowers or plants in the visitor center itself. I'm usually the one that waters them. The other one is directions. North, south, east, and west do not make sense in my mind. Any other question, I'm pretty sure I can be able to answer.
Thank you.
So we're going to first talk about one room that we're not going to go into. Our fuse has broken in that, and so it's really hard to get light in there right now. And that is our basement kitchen. So in 1788, Colonel John Tipton is writing to North Carolina about his basement kitchen. That sentence does seem quite odd off itself, so we're going to give it a little bit of historical context. Before moving here on the property, he was part of a conflict known as Lord Dunmore's War. Essentially, that is a conflict between the colony of Virginia and the Shawnee Native American tribe to expand Virginia's borders. After that, he serves as a recruiter for the Virginia militia during the Revolutionary War. But when he moves here in 1784, he is moving into Washington County, North Carolina. Tennessee did not exist yet. Now, we are going to have a state start to form known as the state of Franklin. Its first official meeting is in December of 1784, and Colonel John Tipton, he is not a supporter of Franklin. But at its beginning, Franklin is getting a lot of momentum and a lot of movement. A lot of the conflict between North Carolina and Franklin are going to be known as the Courthouse Wars. Essentially, It is just both of them breaking into each other's courthouses and stealing any relevant documents. If you were to get married, you're registering your marriage license in both, and you are picking out what state you pay your taxes to. Keep that one in mind. But on the legal side, North Carolina is trying to intervene in Franklin elections and trying to just kind of illegitimize the state. The state wasn't even really started how states are supposed to be started, but we also are going to get a lot of our groundwork on how states are going to be founded after all of this. If Franklin would have been allowed to exist, it would have been the nation's 14th state. But by January, roughly December 1787 to January 1788, North Carolina realizes they can get the residents of the state of Franklin for one specific thing. Remember how I said they picked who their taxes are for? They can get them for back taxes. So Colonel John Tipton, at this time, he is over the Washington County court systems for North Carolina. So he gets a letter from the state of North Carolina and is told to start collecting property for back taxes. Now, he is going to send a local sheriff, a gentleman named Jonathan Pugh, to the home of a gentleman named John Sevier. You've probably heard his name, and he is unfortunately the villain in our story today. So the property that Tipton is going to send Pugh to seize, and the property that Pugh seizes, is going to be slaves. That's going to be the easiest form of property to actually move. So those slaves are going to be taken from Sevier's home at the time in Greene County, Tennessee, to here in our basement kitchen. Now our basement kitchen, it is Colonel John Tipton's main kitchen on the property. And when I mean basement kitchen, it is an underground basement kitchen. It is a fireplace and then just kind of one open room. Today, if you were to see it, it has brick floors. Back in the 1700s, it was a dirt floor in a dirt ramp. The reasoning for is because it is going to be one of the few doors that does lock in the 1700s. Those slaves are here for pretty much the entirety of February 1788. Sevier manages to get a militia of about 100 men, and on the 27th of February that year, we have what's known as the start of the Battle of the State of Franklin. He brings 100 men and surrounds the property here. Now, the Battle of the State of Franklin is not a political battle by all means, though it does have, unfortunately, political implications at the end for Franklin. It is Sevier wants his slaves back. Colonel John Tipton wants John Sevier off of his property. All 3 days of the battle, Sevier does wave a white flag, just demands his slaves back, and he is citing stuff known as the Franklin Act. And Tipton is pretty much telling him that the laws he is citing do not exist, and to get off his property. We'll have some skirmishes throughout the day. One of the 3 days, there is a 10-minute siege on the home itself, but things really don't happen with it too much. We're gonna have some casualties. Some gentlemen do get injured, some horses do pass away, but according to eyewitness reports, they're kind of just shooting up at the sky, shooting and making it obvious that they're not trying to harm each other. They know they're going to have to be friendly by the end of this. On the 28th, that evening, a massive snowstorm comes to the region. Any of our supporters of the state of Franklin have to move to their main encampment a little further down the road. That is what's going to get Tipton to get reinforcements. You notice a gas station across the street from us. They're going to pass where that gas station is, come up around where that cave is, and come up behind where our visitor center is, and come and be stationed at the house. On the last day of the battle, during a 10-minute skirmish, someone on the side for Franklin accidentally shoots, or just shoots, Sheriff Jonathan Pugh. He will succumb to his injuries a few days later, but the immediate response is Sevier calls for a full retreat. Tipton chases Sevier and his men to Jonesboro, Tennessee, and just kind of goes up the chase there. Eventually, Sevier's governorship for the state of Franklin does end, but no one else has ran. Why would they? They're not a real state, and they just shot a sheriff a few months back. Kind of understandable there. And so Sevier, he takes it upon himself. He's running the state of Franklin for the rest of 1788, illegally. By January of 1789, the state of Franklin is officially declared dead. There's really no support for it. It will not be the last time we hear about the state of Franklin, so we're going to put a pin on that, and we're going to talk about Sevier and Tipton at the end. Now, as you know, John Sevier is Tennessee's first governor. He finally does become governor of a real state. But Colonel John Tipton, he is going to be an elected politician as Tennessee starts to form. He's going to serve in Tennessee's General Assemblies and help write some of Tennessee's founding documents. But he does retire from politics, and his last 10 years, he does live here on the property, and he just does farm work. And he also specifically breeds racehorses. Like I said, that was also not the end for the state of Franklin. We are going to have 2 attempts of revival. The first one is in 1861. East Tennessee is a little bit more Union supporting than the rest of the state, and there are talks of succeeding and rejoining the Union as the state of Franklin. It never happens, but there are conversations about it. The last one happens 100 years after, in 1961. And that is going to be a lovely Tennessee state representative named Representative Quillen does try to make a 51st state out of those original counties, the state of Franklin. It is called a highly symbolic act and immediately shot down. And that is the current end of the state of Franklin's history. So we'll actually start the main part of the tour of the home with the cabin. So this is our main part. So what we're going to see here is this is going to be our original cabin and the additions done by John Tipton Jr. The only things that were added by Landon in this part that we know of are the porches. So when we go in, we actually go in through our working back porch. So this is going to be enclosed by Landon when he starts construction of his L, but the length comes from John Tipton Jr. When he adds on to the home, he is going to add on this way. Now Colonel John, he passes away in 1813, and another son, Abram or Abraham Tipton, I've heard it both ways. He does live here on the property for a little bit. But by 1820, John Tipton Jr. has moved here, and he is starting his renovations. He adds a full room down here and a full room upstairs. But we still have the bones of the original cabin, and as we go through, John Tipton Jr., he passes away in 1831, and the home sits with the Tipton family for 6 more years. After that, we do change hands to our Haynes family. So it is going to be through a purchase of a gentleman named David Haynes. His portrait is right here behind you. And he is a self-made money man, a land acquisitioner, mill house owner, and he'll be the gentleman with his wife Rhoda, whose portrait's on the opposite wall, to purchase the property. And we have a little bit of intrigue with Rhoda's portrait also. Hers is the only one that will not have a background of our Haynes portraits. So we think that hers was actually done post-mortem. While they are the purchasers of the home, they never live here. The home, in 2 years after their purchase, becomes a wedding gift. Their son Landon marries his wife Eleanor, and they're gifted the home. But this room is the parlor. It is part of the original cabin. Parlors are typically going to be your party room. The higher the ceiling, the harder it is to heat. You are showing a status of wealth. You are showing people you have money, or you are trying to convince people you have more money than what you do. For Colonel John Tipton, he is going to get a little bit of warmth in here, more so than John Tipton Jr., because of that basement kitchen. It is right below us, That fireplace will be going about 20 some hours of a day. It is their main kitchen for the property. So when they're bringing out food, they're also bringing it out and around the home. But John Tipton Jr. makes this that parlor. Do we have any questions so far?
No, you're doing great. You're telling me more than I know.
And you,
Where did the pianos come? When they entered?
So this piano actually has a little bit of history on its own. So there are usually 2 artifacts. If I get questions on them, I can yap a little bit about people that don't live here. And this is our first one in the home. This is a J.P. Hell & Co. gorgeous rosewood piano. J.P. Hell, you're not going to really hear about him anymore in history, but he actually takes his fortune, puts it into a piano artisan company, and decides, I can do that commercially. And he makes the very first commercial piano company, allowing less of the elite to get pianos. He actually goes through and pays professional piano creators to design what he thinks is their best piece, buys for that piece, and then hires a team of workers to assemble it. I've only found in my research on this piano 1 other piano from this company still in existence. But it is a pearl inlay and ivory keys. And it's going to specifically date from the 1880s. So it's a little bit past our land and time period, but it was gifted to us by the Tennessee Historical Commission.
is this an organ over here?
Yes, so this one is technically a pull stop organ. So if you've ever heard the phrase pulling out all the stops, that is where we get this from. So you have your little pull stops here, and then you have your pedals, and the pedals specifically are very similar to a texture of like an oboe or a bassoon reed. And you would pull those out and you would use the pedals, and it's just a little bit of a different type of organ.
Beautiful.
Pulling out the stops.
That's where you get that phrase from.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So when you're done in here, we're gonna go into the next room. It's gonna be right across the hall.
Table similar to that myself.
So we're right here, right across the hall. I was like, I feel like you're wanting to ask a question about that. Do you want to ask a question about that?
That's a piece of a mantle.
It is not a piece of a mantle.
It's not?
No. So I'm going to step back out in the hall for a demonstration. So we're going to talk about modesty. I rarely get asked about this piece, and I love it. So yeah. So anytime I'm like, you want to ask about it? So it looks like it is part of the mantle, but it is actually not. So we're going to talk about our 17 and 1800s modesty. So it is fine for some of our more lavish evening dresses to show a little bit of collar, things like that. That's more considered modest. But ankles. If you are showing your ankles, you are immodest.
Oh.
So you can check in here to see if you were showing any ankle, and also to help lace your boots. I did not know about the actual purpose of this piece until earlier this year, and our archivist Wesley mentioned it just offhand, and I was like, wait, that's the purpose? So ever since, I've just been like, I love this piece. It's
Modesty.
yeah, it is helping not show your ankles.
Okay.
And usually I am on a tour, and I'm usually really bad about it because I got asked a lot about it this summer. And I am in like capris and sandals, so I was not passing modesty for the time period back then. And with my skirt today, I'm not really too much either with that standard. But this is our sitting room, dining room. It'll also be our sick room. So we're going to talk a little bit about the room's construction first. So like I said, we're able to see where original cabin ends and our additions begin. It's quite obvious in here. You're going to see on both sides a very much prominent dip. So this is our cabin end, And then this is our John Tipton Jr. restoration. Now we do have one piece of John Tipton restoration to the home that we're not going to find here on the site. It is a second kitchen. That kitchen is a summer kitchen, what people more traditionally think of when they think of historic homes. It is either burnt down or torn down around the time Landon constructs his L, and it's relatively close and a little bit too close for us to comfortably be able to even attempt to reconstruct it. But if you notice, we have our bed in the corner here. That's because this room will double as the sick room. So they understand germ theory to the extent that if you're sick, you're making other people sick. So their solution is they are going to actually keep you in here, door shut, quarantine of the time, until you have gotten better or passed on to the next life. So we didn't have any questions? I know I talk about this. I have this room really depressing.
Who's the portrait of?
So we are not sure who the portrait is of. A lot of the artifacts in the home, pretty much all of them except for a few that I'll point out, have been donated over time. Our last family used this as storage. The floors will have to get completely redone in here once the state's able to start its restoration work. And a lot of the originals in the home were too deteriorated for comfort.
What year was this done? What year?
So this is going to be the 60s restoration.
1960s, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our room to the left, right above the sitting room, is going to be the daughter's bedroom. So where we're unsure about that exact date when John Tipton Jr. moves onto the property, he has about 3, maybe 4 daughters married at that point, but he still has 3 or 4 daughters. Overall, he has 9 kids and 7 of them are daughters. And so that becomes the daughter's bedroom, and there is a little hall off to the side, which would be the boys' washroom, because when we go immediately up the steps, it is the boys' bedroom. And we have cross-breeze windows there. And the unique thing about those cross-breeze windows is that right out through here, that window right there is actually blacked out upstairs because of Landon's front porch. We'll also have the primary bedroom, which is above our parlor. And one of the unique things about upstairs is in the boys' bedroom and the primary bedroom, we do have a horseshoe shape to the ceiling. And that's because Colonel John had a half story up there originally. John Tipton Jr. makes the decision to add about 2 feet. So I am going to ask, who's the tallest in our group today?
Probably me.
How tall are you?
5'9".
5'9"? Okay, you are a little bit shorter than what we do have reports for Colonel John being. It's really all we have of his appearance is his height, and he's about 6 feet tall. And that is exactly kind of where that ceiling would have originally ended. So he's going to be kind of bending down, crouching when he's upstairs.
John Tipton, Colonel John Tipton.
Yeah, Colonel John Tipton, and then John Tipton Jr. just adds 2 feet.
Okay.
So he makes the ceiling taller.
Good, that's great.
Yeah. So our next part of the home is going to be our L. So we will head out this door. And the L will be built by Landon, but we'll actually skip over him. So it's going to turn out to the porch. And we skip over Landon when it comes to the L except for the build. But it is built in 2 phases. At one point, we do have back behind this fire break remnants of a 3rd chimney, but now it sits as a fire break. Essentially what it is it is a gap. So if the kitchen in the L was to catch on fire, it would not catch the main part of the home on fire. But it is built in 2 phases. The final phase of the L is in 1855. So we're going to jump our history to the 1880s. So we're going to do quite a little bit of a jump right there. And we're going to talk about a lady named Sarah Simmerly. Now Sarah Simmerly is the last private purchaser of the home. And she moves here with her sons Samuel and Lawson. While living in the home, she does eventually fall and break her hip. And she comes down with cancer. So her and her sons make the decision to move out of the main portion of the home and move into the L full time. And this right here becomes Sarah's bedroom. So we're gonna see some originals of the Simmerly family in here. We're gonna see Sarah's chest, and then Samuel and Lawson's high chairs. Now she passes away in 1938, and her sons will continue to live here on the property. To tell you a bit about the brothers, we can go ahead and head on to the dining room. To tell you a bit about the brothers, Lawson, he works the railroad at the time the Simmerlys sell part of the property to the railroad in the early 1900s. He hops the train and goes to work. Oh, the train. That usually never happens when I talk about them. That's really cool. But he does eventually lose his legs to diabetes. Lawson, he does more odds and ends and works the property as a farm. So in 1942, they get their first letter from the state of Tennessee asking to purchase the property. The brothers are very hermited. They do not like people. They especially do not like outsiders. So they ignore this first letter. Like, neither brother marries, neither has kids. Lawson had a girlfriend for a little bit. But in 1944, you can follow me into the kitchen. In 1944, the two brothers actually do get a second letter from the state. And this one is slightly more aggressive. It kind of just sums up to, hey, you ignored our first letter. If you ignore this one, we're just going to condemn it. Please sell us the home. Or we're just going to condemn and take it. So the brothers, they, with the help of a lawyer, do sell it to the state. They're going to sell it for a little over $7,000. I'm of a Tipton descendant. I was literally telling the tour yesterday, I was like, it's so weird. We've not had a Tipton descendant yet, and it's Friday. Like, we're going to have one tomorrow. Or it'll be my first time in over 2 years. We've not had one. We get you guys far more than our Haynes descendants. But, so the Simmerlys sell the property, and they're actually going to work with the state to help show them kind of where things are. The state has no idea about the cave. They're going to be the ones to tell them about the cave, kind of help show where some of those original buildings are. So there's a little bit more of a working relationship once it's sold. Now both brothers, they do pass in 1962. They pass away about 5 days apart in November of that year. So that is when we're fully turned over to the state. And as I explained earlier, we are run jointly by the Tennessee Historical Commission and a nonprofit. So the state owns the property, but the nonprofit is kind of over maintaining it. Any big ticket items go for the state. The state is not as concerned with my paycheck as the nonprofit is, or who is employed as your tour guide. But this here is our final kitchen here on the property. The home will have 4 kitchens. Our dining room was originally the 3rd kitchen here. And then it is literally explained to me by my site director. Rumor said Eleanor wanted a bigger kitchen. She got her bigger kitchen. So this is going to be our final kitchen. It's built by 1855. And we have about 200 artifacts in here. But we're going to see some of the remnants of the Simmerly era work that was done in here. So right through here we have our lovely outdoor paneling on this wall. So it was added straight on, which is also why our fireplace here is enclosed. And then you also individual research that has been done, just not on working hours, was actually on Landon specifically. So my academic area of interest, when I go get my PhD, it is all on church and religious history. That is what I am trained in. So this is completely off of my training, a little bit academically. And so I did Landon's ministry specifically with that. And I got to present it at an academic conference, which was really, really cool.
You want a picture of this?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, and then that door right there is the door to the basement kitchen.
That's where the slaves were held for a period of a month. Is that right?
A little over a month.
And during a snowstorm, the tremendous snowstorm. Is that right?
Yeah, we're gonna have a snowstorm during the battle.
Okay.
How tall was the ceiling?
A little
Can you
over
stand
6 foot. You can stand up pretty comfortably. We do have some taller people that we have beams, and then we have a little bit of gap. They have to stand there.
Yeah.
But other than that, the only time it really kind of catches people is going in and out. And more going out because of the little lip over the door.
So it was kind of uncomfortable for the slaves, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable.
So as we round about, you're going to see our front porch. That front porch is going to be Greco-Roman Revival architecture, which essentially means they're using columns. It is going to be an architecture style found plenty in the antebellum South. It matches our law office, which is our next stop. So this is building 4 of, built here, kept here. It's not a reconstruction. Building 5, that's building 3 for that. Building 4 is the law office.
The roofing, is that same style as the original, or?
Yes. Because the roof also matches our home today.
Was the law office here? Oh, this was original law office?
Yeah. So it is Johnson City's first freestanding law office, and it was built in the 1840s.
So the roofing is to the period, is that right? Or is it something that was later? It looks like it might have been later, but I don't know.
It was added on later,
I mean,
so we do get
there you go.
remodels and restorations.
Right.
But anytime that happens, they do have to be as historically accurate as possible. To put it in a little bit of perspective, one of the beams for our barn got replaced about a little over a year ago. I today cannot tell you which beam it is. Just to put it in a little bit of perspective. I watched them put it in. Cannot tell you. So anytime we get any renovations like that, they are as historically accurate as possible. But Landon Carter Haynes, our lovely lawyer, he has quite a few interesting career choices. He is a lawyer. He is a newspaper editor. He is a Methodist minister. He is a Tennessee state representative, a Confederate senator, and then a lawyer. So we go full circle. As a lawyer, we have 2 cases he worked on. The first is the case of the missing ham. A ham just goes stolen off someone's windowsill. It goes to court. The other one is the case of a murdering midget. A midget goes on trial for murder. It goes into recess. We don't have any documents after that. But he is also a newspaper editor for a newspaper called the Tennessee Sentinel. Now, all newspapers at this time have a political backing. His is a Democratic newspaper. He develops a feud with a gentleman named William Brownlow of the Elizabethton Whig for the Whig political party. Now, their feud in the first few months starts off kind of rough with an assassination attempt on Brownlow's life. Not the first, not the last, but it is going to be this one that Brownlow thinks Landon is the mastermind behind it. He almost has Landon arrested for it. After that, the two are going to physically fight it out in the middle of downtown Jonesboro. Essentially, Landon has been saying some unsavory things about Brownlow's mother, his deceased mother. And so Brownlow takes it upon himself to confront Landon and asks him if he has his pistol ready. They're going to duel right then and there. Landon lies, says he does not have his pistol ready. And so Brownlow pistol whips him. The response was Landon shoots him in the leg. It becomes a full-on fist fight that is broken up by a third-party individual. That is the most violent their feud gets, but it does continue on. They're constantly kind of just trashing each other in the newspaper. Anytime Brownlow can undermine Landon's career, he's going to. One of the biggest times we see this is Landon's 8-week Methodist ministry. Before moving here, Brownlow had been a minister for 10 years in the Methodist Church. And so when his rival gets a license to preach after a 6-month conversion to that denomination, he is furious. So he starts this whole thing that Landon lied his way into the ministry, quotes the Psalms while trash talking him. Like, it's a whole big thing. And a third-party minister does try to intervene. The end result of this is that third-party minister gets falsehood and slander charges in the Methodist Church. The church acquits him, and the charges fall on Landon at 8 weeks of his ministry. For a little bit, Landon's license is just temporarily suspended, but by April 1843, his license is fully revoked due to William Brownlow being the tiebreaker. He will be asked by a different sect of the Methodist Church to come back and preach and get a whole new license, and he says no, he's not interested. The Sentinel gets sold for Landon in 1846, so he really starts kind of moving to politics by the 1850s. He becomes a Tennessee state representative and starts talking heavily on the train. That is Landon's biggest reason for succession in his mind. The railroads coming to East Tennessee are Confederate supporting railroads. They want to be in more Confederate areas and don't really want to be with the Union. So he starts talking heavily on succession. When Tennessee finally does succeed, it takes 3 attempts. 3 attempts. And on that 3rd attempt, only one county in East Tennessee votes yes. Sullivan County, Tennessee, where I unfortunately am from. But because of him being so outspoken for the Confederacy, he is elected a Confederate state senator. There, he moves to Knoxville. When Knoxville falls during the Civil War to the Union, he moves to Whitfield, Virginia. From there, after the Civil War is over, he moves to Statesville, North Carolina. He is then arrested for treason. He files a petition of pardon, pledges loyalty, and it's very much unspoken. He's not allowed to leave the state. But he's lost the property here to the federal government, and he makes the decision of he's moving to Memphis, Tennessee. Brownlow is the governor of the state. He tries to draw up more charges. So Landon writes another petition of pardon and is pardoned by his once political rival, now President Andrew Johnson. And that's going to be about really close to the end anniversary of the Civil War, that 1-year mark. After that, he does attempt to run for political office once more, loses because he was a Confederate politician, and just goes on to practice law. Again, that law office is still standing in Memphis, Tennessee. He will pass in 1875. Do you have any questions about this building?
You mentioned succeeding. I didn't understand that. Was there
So that is when Tennessee joins the Confederacy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Succeeding from the Union.
Yeah, succeeding
That's right.
from the Union.
That's right.
So when Tennessee does that, it takes 3 attempts of them voting for them to finally get enough counties to vote yes. So Tennessee was very much a battleground for that.
You get a picture of the pictures.
Oh, yes, yes.
So that one is Landon, and then this is his wife, Eleanor. Yes.
This is his law collection.
So-
Is this the original law collection?
This is not the original law collection. It was donated to us, but it is going to be roughly the law books from the same time.
Okay, from that period. Good. Right, thank you. Now, what is this her name? Is what?
This is Eleanor.
Okay.
And our reproductions were done before the portraits were restored. So this one does have some scratch marks, which leads us to believe that someone did not like her and threw her portrait in a closet after she passed.
What's okay? I have seen a drawing of Colonel John Tipton. Now,
Okay.
a drawing though. Is that accurate of someone a portrait someone drew?
Do not know. I have heard about this before, but I've never gotten confirmation for myself.
Well, that's what I kind of thought too. I mean, I was kind of
Get this.
I was kind of, I'm sorry, I was kind of skeptical about whether that was, because that period of time there was not a photograph, definitely, but
Like, the only thing I do know that we do have 100% on record is his height.
his height, okay.
For some reason. Like, that is so strange to me. And you asked how I've managed to get all this information. I also do like to come, we do paranormal tours of the site every once in a while. And our site directors come and they'll do the history for it. And so sitting there, actually getting to listen to them talk and interpret the history, you learn a lot more. Which is also how I've managed to get this, a lot of this. So, I mentioned over here, this is Garland Acres. This is the subdivision that is here now. It was part of Colonel John Tipton's original property. So, we do know that the barn was there and his horse stables. The cemetery is also somewhere in there. Like I said, I'm really bad at directions. We do have them written out on our visitor center though. And I can get you that. So that was original building number 4. This is original building number 5. This is our vernacular domestic outbuilding. It is the state's very, very fancy way of saying it is a Summerly era work building. And my running joke is it houses all of our spinning wheels that did not make it into the back porch. We also have original building number 6. It is the necessary, that one is also a Summerly era build. It has been moved from its original location just by a hair. And like our facility, it's not we have had gentlemen and ladies who passed before, and totally think it was still not right now. We also have our sorghum fields and our apple trees. So we do a sorghum festival here in September. We show the entire process of milling out the sorghum and boiling it and making sorghum molasses. We have some ladies that every once in a while do apple butter. They've had some conflicts the past 2 years for our stories of the pumpkin patch event. We also tap maple trees, and we do a maple syrup festival here in February. So we show the entire process of historically making maple syrup.
Do you take some of the syrup from the tree?
We'll take the fat from the trees and we'll show how it's made historically. Unfortunately, that is not what we're able to sell. We have a maple syrup farm that actually comes and sells theirs for us. And that's just food dietary laws for Tennessee.
Yeah.
We also have our smokehouse to help better preserve our meat. You're going to heavily salt pork and smoke it really relatively low. And then we're going to have our last stop. This is our George Haynes slave cabin. It is going to be the only building here that has been relocated. It is originally from an area called Boone's Creek, which is not too far from here. It's part of Johnson City. But it originally is the Harwood family cabin. They build it and they live here until they essentially get too big to reside in here. It then becomes a barn and they paint it bright red. We are given this cabin in 1999 and we are moved here in the 2000s. We have 2 different steps on whichever one was best for you.
This one works better for me.
So when it is moved here, it is took down and rebuilt as historically accurate as possible. And it now sits as our George Haynes slave cabin. Now in the 1860s, we are going to have our names for our slaves. For Colonel John and John Tipton Jr., they're just tallies. We don't know the amount for John Tipton Jr. For Colonel John, it's about 6. But they're only tallies as standard for the time. By this point, it's really common for you to have your names with your slaves in your census records. So we have Cornelia, a little girl about 6 to 9. We have Charlotte, a woman in her 60s. And then we have George. He is in his mid-30s. All we know about Cornelia and Charlotte are their names and ages. We are going to know the most about George. George is actually mixed. His father is David Haynes, so he is Landon's half-brother. When Landon goes off to Washington College, he's gifted George. George follows him there, and he actually becomes literate, which is kind of illegal for slaves at the time. After that, they move on to the property here. And George will be the collateral for all of the outbuildings, including the original cabin that sat here. So we'll talk a little bit about what is different with this cabin and the original cabin. There's actually not much different. This is a standard mountain cabin for the Appalachian region, and it is roughly the same size as George's cabin. We would have had a window right over here that we don't have, and then our fireplace and chimney today are made up of two different chimneys, and it would have been just on this opposite wall. It's kind of a mirror of each other. But George will be the collateral if Landon cannot pay his debts. That never happens. George does live here until the end of the Civil War. Now for George, slavery is going to look a little bit different than our Deep South slavery. He's able to go in and out of town. People know who he is. He's able to add things to Landon's account, things like that. He's also going to be doing a mix of domestic and farm work. After the Civil War, George is freed. He has a son named Habakkuk, and then he moves to Memphis. After Landon's death, he moves to Jackson, Tennessee with the rest of the Haynes family, but then we just kind of lose him historically.
We live about 60 miles north of Jackson, so
Okay.
that's pretty close to where we live.
Yeah.
Hour drive.
About an hour's drive.
Now, what was,
Did you mention the stairs when you?
So-
Yeah, oh yeah. I thought that we
The stairs are going to be the sleeping loft, so all these cabins have sleeping lofts. We don't let people up there for safety. And what is blocking it is actually some hardwood original artifacts. They called earlier this year or late last year, and they were like, hey, we have a spinning wheel and a crib we would like to donate to the site. And we're like, okay. And they're like, can we have it put in the cabin? And we're like, yeah, you donated us the cabin, sure.
Who was it donated in?
The Harwood
The
family.
Harwood. No.
So is this open area all up here? I mean, it's
Yeah.
sleeping area, but it's as big as this. Open
Yeah.
up. So, okay, that's pretty good.
pretty good area. Yeah, but the cold air can come in up over the door.
Yeah, they did not insulate it as well once it got brought over here for restoration work. We have had some reenactors in the past come camp out here. One of them was my husband. He told me it was a lovely 28 in here and 25 outside. And he had two younger reenactors that did not understand. You dogpiled on each other. And he said about 2 a.m. he was tired of hearing them chatter, and he shoved them as close to the fire as you could. Because this fireplace is still a wood-burning fireplace, and it does get our most use compared to our fireplaces in the main part, which are now in the main home, which are now done by gas.
I can still smell the ashes.
We had back in a few weeks ago, we had it going for an event called Stories from the Pumpkin Patch. We were making apple cider.
Oh, wonderful.
But that is it for my portion of the tour.
When is your next event here at the?
Our next event, that is our own event, is Visions of Christmas, and that is December 5th and 6th.
1938. You want to take this? You want to take this? Take this for you if you want to.
Is it going?
Yeah, it's good. All right.
Pigsty. That's all right.